Juliana, hey.
Hi, Eric.
We're here.
We're finally doing this.
We're doing it. We've talked about doing it for a long time.
We have.
And here we are. What is your life today? Like, what are you doing today?
Today.
Yeah, other than this.
My life is auditioning.
Uh-huh.
It is teaching voice, singing, to be more specific. It is working part-time at Montrose Church.
Yeah.
With you.
Hey-o.
Hey-o. And it is being a wife. I'm approaching 2 years of marriage, which is crazy, especially because our honeymoon was just last October, so it doesn't feel like 2 years. It feels like one.
You had the delayed
exactly the pandemic
honeymoon.
Yes. Yeah. Which in a way made it way more fun because we got 2 honeymoons out of it. We got like a little immediate mini moon, and then we got our huge blowout Portugal honeymoon last October. But yeah, in 2 days it will be 2 years, and it doesn't feel like that at all. And then like I am a human who's in therapy and growing and changing and learning and, you know, finding my voice a little more every day. And yeah.
Are you mentioned auditioning. I've talked to so many people that either love or hate the new auditioning world. Because it used to be show up at a place, there's 25 people who look exactly like you, and you wait in line, and then you stand in front of some people who give you feedback or don't give you feedback, and then you go about your day.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming you're still filming most of these auditions.
Yeah, almost all of them.
Is that a better world or a worse world for you?
Both. It's highly inconvenient because there's so much that is required of you that goes beyond what your actor job is. So no longer is your job to prepare the material to the best of your ability, have a point of view, dress for the character and show up and do your best. But now your job is to like set up your umbrella lights and your tripod and edit your takes and choose your takes, because of course you're not going to do just one take, because now you have the luxury / burden of doing it until you think you've done your best.
There had to be freedom in just like doing it and letting it go.
Oh my God. And not having to watch yourself.
Yeah.
Like just being present as much as you could be in that moment and being like, all right, here we go, and jumping off that cliff. And now it's the ability to overthink every single moment. I mean, down to like minutia that nobody else is even going to think about or see, but you start obsessing on.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
That said, the upside is you can have a little bit more control, but I think it's mostly downside.
Yeah.
I really do. As somebody who's like hypercritical of my own work and myself and how I show up in the world, and I've been doing it for so long that there's just so much like overthinking that goes into it all of the time.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd say that I miss the feedback, but I really do. I think it's a disservice to actors to no longer give them direction. And I recently, did Sunday in the Park with George at Pasadena Playhouse, and that audition experience was all in person. And it was incredibly wonderful to show up to a room, and first the casting director, and at the callbacks the director, we played, and it was much more like what you would get on a set or in an actual rehearsal experience. And you end up showing so much more too, because you can show that you can take direction. So
well, even if they're not specifically directing in an audition, you could read body language at least and kind of pivot and try something different. If you can just
you're not supposed to do that.
Just feel it. But with a recording, you're just like committing to one thing and sending it in.
Yeah. And then if you're not exactly what they want, probably 90% of the people watching will just click the next person's video. As opposed to go, oh, she's really interesting. I mean, it's not at all the take we want, but I bet we should call her back and we'll give her this note. We'll tell her agent to have her think. Unheard of. Even when you get the callback, if you're self-taping for the callback, because occasionally they'll do a Zoom callback, or you'll maybe go in person if it's for like producers, at a network, but sometimes you're literally just taping the stuff again, and they haven't given you any redirect, so you're just kind of doing your thing again. And Yeah,
Yeah.
it's frustrating in that sense.
Have you experienced at all the world of, when I was talking to Parker Panel on this podcast, who's like a young, late teens, early 20s actor, like he has to bring his social media numbers with him to auditions. Like it's part of the headshot. Here's my headshot, and here's how many Instagram followers
I've got
I
a million
have.
Instagram followers.
Yeah.
That's
Have
crazy.
you like encountered that world at all?
I think I'm too old to encounter that world. I think that the younger generations who are like really coming up in that may be asked for that sometimes. But I've been in, I've talked to casting directors who say that a lot of that's a myth, that's not even being looked at in the way that maybe once upon a time like commercial casting directors would look at that when you know, Instagram first blew up into what it is now, a big thing. But no, I have never been asked for it. I think I've been asked, which they're probably looking, but I think I've been asked for my social media information like once in my entire career.
Off of the high of the show, it's hard to go to sleep sometimes. Are you still doing all the auditioning and stuff like that during the day, or do you kind of shut that down when you're in a show?
No, I'm still auditioning when auditions come up. For some reason, this time around with Sunday, the auditions were few and far between. So it actually didn't come up that often. But yeah, when they do, what I tell my agents is that I have to leave for the theater by a certain time every day once we're in the run. And so I can't do in-persons. Commercials are really the big thing with that right now. Yeah. If it's same day commercial audition, I'm not going to be able to make it while I'm doing the run of the show. Yeah. And if it's, anything after 2:00, I'm probably not going to be able to make it. But mornings are still very free once we open. Yeah. Rehearsal process is a little different, but I think with all the self-taping, that is one advantage. You can, go home completely exhausted and absorbing all sorts of information about what you've done in rehearsal that day and still do your setup and print your sides and put yourself on tape if you have to. Yeah,
I heard someone say the other day that there's two ways of looking at it as an actor. There's I'm a working actor when I get roles, or I'm a working actor because I'm showing up and auditioning and I'm doing the job, I'm living the dream because I'm auditioning.
Sure.
How do you see it?
I mean, that seems like the more optimistic
healthy
view. The glass half full is, yes, I'm always an actor. And, to some extent, I totally believe that. Like, as long as you're having opportunity to be creative. So as long as the auditions are coming in fairly consistently and you are getting the opportunity to work on material and absorb material and bring your lens to it, I think, yes, you are an actor, whether or not they hire you for the job. And your job is to show up and do your best. But it's so much more fun when you book the job and you actually get to like show up to a paid job, and that role is yours for a while and you get to really live with it. Right. And I mean, it used to be so different too, everything was in person. I remember way back in the day, like living in New York and getting an audition for like a new pilot and going to my agency to pick up the script, and I'd get to read the entire thing, and that really felt like, oh, I'm living the actor life. This is the job. I'm reading scripts, and I kind of know what's happening. And it's rare that you get any script. I mean, it's rare. Sometimes you don't even get the actual scene from the project. You get, like dummy sides because they're very they don't want to disclose anything about the actual project. Right. So the business has just changed so much. But yeah, I look at it as both. Like, it is my job to show up and do the work and audition, and I'm an actor while I'm doing all of that. Nobody can take that away from me. However, I still have that sense of like, I have to wait to be hired before I can really do my job, before I feel complete in my work. Right, for sure. No, for sure. Do you, like, when you think back on younger Juliana in New York and now, do you define success, like a successful career, differently than you did back then, or is it the same goals, the same strive? God, I'd like to say I define it differently. But the truth is no. I mean, I really have a lot of work to continue to do around this, but I'm always feeling like success is being hired.
Yeah.
That true, and I could tell myself, no, success is, doing the work and growing as an actor and, hating what you do on camera less and less every time you watch yourself and, seeing your progress. And I'm proud of the progress and the growth that I see that I've made in, the last several years. But I do ultimately still, there's this deep, deep part of me, and it's probably from doing it since I was 4 years old and being praised for it as a child, that really thinks, oh, well, success is working. So if I'm not working, I'm a failure.
Right. But there's a difference even between like you grow up and you want to be a star. And then at some point you go, I'd like to not do anything else, just act. I want to be successful enough to where I don't have to do anything else. Or I want to be constantly working. Yes. You know what I mean? Like has that
those
level
goals
of
have absolutely shifted. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wanted to be a Broadway star. I wanted to be winning Tonys and originating roles, and I moved to New York and I understudied the lead on the first national tour of Thoroughly Modern Millie and was on the road for a year and got to play Millie quite a lot. And, and I started to realize, oh, wait, I actually don't want this as my life. Like, I don't like 8 shows a week, open-ended. Like, I like 8 shows a week with a closing date in mind because I'm passionate about the rehearsal process. I get excited about, like, the discovery process. And after a while, I get a little... not bored, but I get antsy. I want to tackle the next role. Or I want the character to evolve and change and grow, so my focus has shifted a lot from like doing the lead in a Broadway show for a year or more to I would love, love, love nothing more than to be, a lead on a soap opera and get to see that character grow and change, or do different guest stars on TV shows so that I can just take on several different kinds of people and roles. And with theater, I love theater. I mean, I could have done Sunday for a year because it was sort of one of those magical moments where the show is something that you love, it's inspiring, it's satisfying as an actor, and the cast is also phenomenal, and you just click. And I think that happens very rarely in theater, that it's a project that you absolutely love, a material that really turns you on, as well as like bonding with the company. You usually get one or the other, or maybe sometimes neither, and you're just doing it because it's a job. But that one I could have done for a while. So I mean, sorry, I'm rambling, but
no, that makes sense. I mean,
yes, my goals have shifted. Totally. And I am with you on that idea of if I could just consistently work as an actor and do nothing else, I'd be thrilled. Right. I don't care what it is. It could be co-stars, Right. But that consistency in working and earning my income solely as an actor would be a dream.
Yeah. How many different jobs do you have right now?
So many. Less than I did pre-pandemic, thank the Lord. Because pre-pandemic, I was also a waitress, and I was working at Disney as a performer.
Hold on, waitress, though, you were a waitress singer.
Which is worse.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's worse.
Working at, what was the place?
Michelli's. Dear, dear place.
Yes.
Great family-owned restaurant.
You had to serve someone a lasagna.
And then go sing a Beatles song.
Yeah. That's kind of 2 jobs in one.
Absolutely. And I think if I ever, God forbid, had to wait tables again, I would find the, most expensive, fancy schmancy restaurant I could find and completely divorce myself from singing while I was doing it.
Yeah.
But no, currently I have, let's see, church, voice lessons, actor, 3 jobs.
That's not bad.
And I'm a student. Yeah. Next week I start statistics.
And you're a student and you volunteer at Animal.
Yeah, my volunteer job's actually my favorite. Yeah. I love what I do.
I love how you said I have 3 jobs and then you just threw in student at the end as if that won't be like a huge time crunch.
It's gonna feel insane. I'm in denial. It starts on Monday and I'm completely in denial. I don't know. I'm going to crawl into a hole for the next 6 weeks.
Is there anything as you look back on your career to this point that you would have done differently?
Yeah, absolutely. When I was, and it's so frustrating because you can't go back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I auditioned.
Oh, you're talking to the guy that played football all the way through college and now wants to write musicals.
Right.
So yeah, it's a little frustrating.
It's
that
kind
you
of
can't
frustrating.
Go back.
Yeah.
A little bit.
What would you have done differently? No, so mine takes me back to college as well. You see, you were playing football in college.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I auditioned for 5 musical theater programs. My top 5 choices were NYU, Tisch, Boston Conservatory, Ithaca, CCM, and Carnegie Mellon. And I was accepted into 4 out of the 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really wanted to go to Carnegie Mellon, but they accepted me for acting, not for musical theater. I was waitlisted for musical theater, and I was just so musical theater, Broadway focused that I was insulted and, you know, didn't choose them.
Yeah.
And I wish to God that I had, because what I didn't understand, and, you know, I'm not even sure that it was as much of a thing as it certainly is now, is that the acting is the foundation of everything, you know,
right.
Way more than the singing and the dance. Like, I don't ever have to dance because I'm not a dancer.
Right.
My days of having to like try to dance are over. Like, I'm not going to be a dancer. But, you know, I thought, oh, a musical, I have to, you know, have all of it. And in actuality, Carnegie Mellon is a phenomenal program. I wish I'd gone to school as an actor, and I wish that I had been a little bit broader focused in my career goals, because it's really freaking hard now to get into any straight play, like just to be an actor.
Yeah.
You know, people see musicals on your resume, and it's limiting in a sense. And I've worked really hard to like broaden that opportunity, you know, the sphere of opportunity for myself. I went back to school when I left New York for acting, a master's program in the UK. I thought, oh, you know, London, they turn out fancy actors. People in Hollywood will love that.
Judi Dench and me.
Exactly. Me and Judi Dench, the title of my next book. Yeah, but, you know, I often think if I had, you know, been given any concrete advice around the subject and maybe gone to CMU, maybe life would look a little different. Or even if I had still gone to CCM and then moved and done the Millie tour and, you know, taken the trajectory that I took, if I had had a little bit more wider focus instead of just like musicals, maybe I would be in a slightly different place right now.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I wanted to ask this because I really, truly don't understand.
Okay.
And I'll take you back to, I saw you as Mary Poppins.
Yes.
Right? So what percentage of Mary Poppins did you know before rehearsals started? Like the songs kind of, or did you know a lot of it? Because
I knew the songs cold. I mean, except for the new ones that were written for the Broadway musical. So you've got to understand that the musical is, you know, the new material in that musical is written by somebody other than the Sherman Brothers.
Right.
So there were songs, Practically Perfect and Playing the Game, that I had never heard before.
Right.
The Brimstone and Treacle song in Act 2 where she's chasing the mean nanny out of the house. Never heard it. And I had to use it in the audition because it's the high C at the end and they wanted to hear that I could hit it.
Right. But not to mention blocking and choreo that's going to be specific to this theater, this production.
Sure.
How does it all come together so fast? To me, it seems like it would take like 6 months of rehearsals for that to happen.
Well, and when you're in high school, it does, right? Because you're only in rehearsal for a couple of hours, you know, a couple times a week after class. But when you're in an equity show and it's your sole job to work on that show, it's your typical work day. So you're there from 9 a.m. till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, with an hour break. Right. You're absorbing a lot of information every day, and sometimes you leave rehearsal and your head is spinning, you know, depending on what the show is and how challenging the material is. And for me, it's like anything with dance. So in Mary Poppins, I had to tap. Right. Luckily, tap is like the one kind of dance I kind of bill myself as being able to do. Right. But yeah, I mean, I guess you have so much concentrated rehearsal time.
Right.
And when you're playing Mary Poppins, you also get a lot of, help and attention from the creative team as you need it.
Yeah.
If you're in the ensemble, you're really just you have to just do it.
Right.
But if you have a lead, you get a lot of time and attention. And so you it just happens.
Yeah. Seeing Sunday in the Park recently, Sondheim is a whole different level of complexity. And, I'm watching the guy who played George go ... okay, there's 17 dots here, and then I'm like, how do
pick a blue, red, blue.
Yeah, exactly. Like, is it blue, green, red, or blue, red here? I specifically don't. I have no idea how it works when somebody says like, "Oh, I'm now the Elphaba on Broadway." When you're stepping into something that's already moving at such a high speed, and then all of a sudden you just have to quickly jump onto that train without falling.
Yeah.
How do you learn that show? How do you get enough rehearsals with an existing cast? All of that to me is just crazy that actors can do that.
You don't get enough rehearsals with an existing cast. How that works is you are hired and you're rehearsed by the associate director, the assistant choreographers, the dance captains. You are being rehearsed by people who know the show inside and out.
Right.
And you may be learning the show entirely by yourself with these people, with no other cast.
Right.
If you're lucky, maybe it's a situation where, like with Thoroughly Modern Millie, once we opened the show, we had understudy rehearsals every week. And so we had an entire full cast of understudies or almost full cast of understudies that we would have other actors to work with and walk through the space with. But you're not in the theater. You're not using the set. You're not in your costumes. So you're learning it all in plain clothes in a rehearsal room with tape marked out on the floor telling you approximately where certain set pieces are and significant things that you need to know. And at a certain point, once everything's been learned and you've run through it a few times in that setting, then you have what they call a put-in. Mm-hmm. So you'll get, one day, one few hour block, basically, where all of the actors who are currently doing the show every night at that Broadway theater come in. Everybody puts on their costumes. Actually, they don't. You do. They get mic'd up. You get mic'd up. You have all your costumes, all of your things, your dressers, showing you around backstage and helping you with quick changes and pushing you around so that you know where to go.
It's a miracle.
That's your one time. That's it. And the next night you're in the show. The next night you're Elphaba. Yeah, it's crazy. And there will inevitably be things that you screw up or, things that are a little weird. And other actors, generally speaking, are rooting for you. So helpful.
Right.
Lovingly shove,
Yeah. I was in New York and decided to see Kinky Boots and happened to go to the lead actor's first show.
Cool.
And he was like, this was part of, we can go on this for an hour, but this is part of the whole Broadway, let's just hire a singer, a famous singer to do the role instead of an actual Broadway actor. So this was the lead singer of the band Neon Trees. I forget what his name is.
Never heard of them.
Exactly.
Because that's going to make people buy tickets.
But enough people have apparently to sell tickets. And I'm just watching him going, did he do this in high school? What is his background to be able to do this? But he did pretty well. But I was just thinking, how do you even get ready? There's so much dialogue. There's so much singing.
Not only that, but you've got to hit certain marks on the stage or you're not going to be in light.
Yeah.
There are very specific parameters that you're working with.
Or you're going to hurt somebody.
Sure.
Or you're going to...
Sure. Or that elevator is going to drop out from under you and you're going to fall. Depending on the show. Yeah, there are all sorts of things that could go wrong. With Sunday, I was understudying another role. And we had one music rehearsal. And then I had 2 staging rehearsals, and that was it.
Yeah. And
it was a short run, so, chances of going on were slim, but I could have gone on if I had to. Mm-hmm. I may have not found my light all of the time, but a lot of the work you also have to kind of just do on your own. And it's wild. It's wild out there.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, why, they say stage actors... it's easier for stage actors to adapt to TV and film than it is for TV and film actors to adapt to the stage. They say the best training is in the theater because there are so many elements and things that you have to deal with in order to pull it off that I don't think you get.
Well, I feel like more and more I'm watching shows on network TV going, oh, Broadway actor, oh, Broadway actor, oh, Broadway actor.
Mrs. Maisel's like entirely theater people.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, the way it's filmed is often they do like really, really long shots. Like a car will pull up to a building. The person will get out. They'll walk through a hallway. They'll get in an elevator, up the elevator, out the other side, through a shop, and it's all one shot.
Yeah.
And those are theater actors who are able to, hit their marks and remember their lines for that kind of setup.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the classic one is Law and Order.
All Broadway
If you
people.
recognize a Broadway person, then that's the killer. You know what I mean? Like, hey, wait a minute. That's the Evan Hansen understudy. He probably did it.
He's the one. It's so true.
The most famous of the new people in the episode. That's who did it. I don't know how harsh of a question this is until I hear the answer. So maybe I pre-apologize.
Okay.
Is it weird, or do you feel conflict having a job where maybe you feel you're one thing, but there's an industry telling you you're another thing? Like, does the industry say you fit in these boxes, but you feel like you could do more than just those boxes?
Yes. And I have the opposite feeling sometimes too. So I'm going to start there because there's a very clear example of it that just popped into my head, and then I'll get back to your actual question.
Yeah.
When I saw that a theater company was doing Pride and Prejudice, a play, straight play.
Oh, Mr. Dawsey.
Yes. And I was dying to do it, of course. And I wrote to my agent and I said, I really want to work at South Coast Rep and I really want to do this play. Can I get an audition? And I have like 0 straight plays on my resume at this point. And she reached out to casting and she said, you've got to see my client. She's perfect for this show. I love my agent because she often says that. And sometimes I think it's a lie. But they wrote back and said, oh, we're calling in like the same 6 people that we've worked with for years. And it's a very small cast and we're not seeing anybody new. My agent then said, oh, okay, well, you have to see her for Johanna in Sweeney Todd. She's a perfect Johanna. And the casting director wrote back and said, wait a minute, is she an actor or is she a singer? Yeah. My agent was like, what? Both. Like, duh, And then she got me the audition for Johanna, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I can't sing Johanna. What was she thinking? Yeah. Nobody's going to cast me as Johanna. I'm a brunette. I'm too old. And, because Joanna's like 16. Yeah. And I can't sing like that. What?
Yeah.
And I went to a woman who's an opera singer, and I had 2 voice lessons, and I worked really hard, and I auditioned. And it was terrifying. And then I got a call back and I had a voice lesson over Zoom with that same opera woman the morning before my callback. And I went down and I did my callback and I left. And by the time I got home, I had booked the role. And I couldn't freaking believe it. So like sometimes the industry or people on your team can see you in a way that maybe you don't see yourself. And it's actually like a good thing, right? Because it expands your vision and it pushes you and you end up doing something and you're like, oh my God. Where's this been all my life?
You were wonderful.
Thank you. I think I was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was good. Sufficient. But, in the opposite side of things, I sometimes do think, oh, I'm aging out of Disney ingenue. And what else can I do? What else is going to be, where's the niche? Where do I fit? And how can I convince people to see me beyond that? Because, I think Kristen Chenoweth is a really good example of that. She's so specific.
Yes.
And she was
but
a
when
literal
someone
cartoon.
needs that specific thing, they call her first.
Yes.
That's the thing.
And she somehow managed to also convince people to cast her as Marion the Librarian and, put her, on television shows, and she does concerts around the world. So, I mean, she's made it work for her in a great way. I think all actors, to some degree, think that they can do everything because we're told that if you're an actor, you should be able to do everything. Yeah. And I just think that there's an element of that that's not true because essence is a real thing. Like somebody's energy, the way they enter the room, the way they move their head, the way they squint their eyes, you know, that says something about them. And it doesn't mean that they're any less of an actor, but it may mean that they're not right for every single role. And I filmed an audition yesterday for a show where I think I kind of fall between two roles. I think I would have been perfect 5 years ago for the young ingenue. And I think in 10 years I could crush the woman that I also auditioned for, who's, you know, supposed to be like mid-30s. But she has a cynicism and a heaviness to her that I still kind of, I tip into ingenue.
Right. That feels like specifically a female issue in the industry. Do you feel like it feels like the industry is she's getting older, but she could still play college. She could still play college. And then one morning you wake up and you're like, nope, she can only be a housewife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
no, totally.
Is that like a jarring thing for people in the industry of like, oh, wait, maybe I can't do that anymore?
I think it happens to men too. I mean, my husband was an actor for years and he was very successful. And part of why he left the industry is he was showing up to commercial auditions and he was no longer like the young, like frat guy, but he was absolutely not the young dad. Nobody's going to cast him as that guy ever, even now. And he's like, he just turned 50. But certainly for women, it's a real thing. And yeah, it's true. And I think I'm like, it's kind of happening to me right now, and hasn't happened fully. You know, with Sunday, I auditioned to play Yvonne, and she's the wife of a very affluent, rich, fancy painter. And she has a 12-year-old little girl. And she's, you know, she's a woman. And I was so excited to be considered for her and called back for her and ultimately understudying her because it's really the first woman I've ever been hired to portray. And then how hilarious and ironic, but the first thing I thought when I got the audition for Yvonne was, oh, okay, I guess I'm in that category, but my God, I've always just been a Celeste, who's like the silly little shop girl, right? Yeah. And they auditioned me and called me back twice for Yvonne, and I got cast as Celeste. So I think, you know, it depends on so many factors, but you know, I played Johanna when I was in my early 30s, and she's 16 years old. You've got a lot more grace in theater, but even with television, look at Riverdale, you know, those guys aren't in high school.
No, for sure.
But you do hit a point and suddenly I think those days are gone.
Is there a difference when you're talking about like, you know, you watch a doctor show now and it's like, oh, wow, what a crazy, gorgeous, multi-ethnic, diverse staff this hospital has. They're all gorgeous and different ethnicities. That's crazy. How fortunate. Is the theater world like that also, or is there a difference?
No, it's everywhere, everywhere. And I'm so happy for my friends who are suddenly working so much more, who haven't worked. I have a friend who played Maria in The Sound of Music last year, and she was the first Asian American woman that any of us know of to play that role. And it was a huge deal, and she's insanely proud of it, and she should be. And yet Maria is like my dream role. I'm insanely jealous that I wasn't even considered for it. You know what I mean? It's a delicate, crazy, sensitive topic that I'm afraid to speak to because obviously it's affecting me in an adverse way at times. I've had voiceover representation say full out, like, we love you, we would take you, but we can't because if you could see the breakdowns right now, like nobody's looking for you. And we have 3 of you on our roster already that we feel guilty we're not getting out. So from that standpoint, it's really, really an unhappy thing for me in my career. Unfortunate timing, but it's something that needs and needed to happen. And I think things swing one way to the extreme before they find some sort of level out and balance. Obviously, in a perfect world, the best person for the job would always get it. And that it wouldn't matter what a person looked like, but that's not the case.
I mean, on the one hand, I
and it's sorely needed to go that way. So I'm in full support. But it's tricky. It's tricky.
On the one hand, I'm like, oh, that sucks. No, you could do so much more. But then on the other hand, as someone who does some writing, I understand, like, as you're creating something, you have a specific vision for who it is as you're creating it. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's really hard to break.
Totally.
So I see the push and pull.
My hope is that so many more diversity casting, so much more of that will happen in lead roles, because it's happening a lot in like supporting roles, but like let people play leads, like bring them into like the actual starring roles, which is wonderful. It's happening right now at Pasadena Playhouse in Night Music. Merle Dandridge, who's incredible, is playing Desiree Armfeld. She's gotten rave reviews in the Times, and she's brilliant in the show, and I'm so happy to see her in that part. And then selfishly, there's a part of me that's like, good, maybe I can get a co-star. Maybe I can be like the like lame white guest star friend, and I'd be thrilled. Like, I don't care. I just want to work.
What is at least one, or a couple, but at least one, like, what's the big thing about the industry you would change if you could?
I don't know.
I have one. I have one. And it's probably just a logistics thing. There's probably a lot of reasons for it. I have no idea how they let people audition for stuff, and then you find out that you don't get it just because you don't hear from them. Like, that is, to me, that is like unbelievable.
I'll do you one better. I thought you were going to say they let people audition for it, and then you find out that like the role had already been cast. They were just seeing, because that happens a lot too. They'll send out a breakdown. Actors will break their backs to get things submitted. They'll pay money to coach on the material. And then you'll realize, oh, wait, it was already cast. They're just kind of covering their butts, which is really, that's something I would change.
Yeah, for sure.
I would also change, I hate stunt casting. I think it's utter bullshit. And I think that I don't think it sells tickets the way that people think it does, unless it's a huge freaking star. Yes, sure. Sarah Bareilles in Waitress, first of all, she can sing her face off, and she wrote the music. Put her in it.
Perfect example. Sarah Bareilles.
Dude from What's You Call It and Kinky Boots.
Yeah, or Waitress, perfect example, because they did
stunt
a lot
casting.
of stunt
Lots
casting.
of it.
Sarah Bareilles, I would buy that ticket.
Yes.
Who bought a ticket to see Jason Mraz in Waitress?
Nobody.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Who cares about Jason Mraz, first of all? But then who wants to see him in Waitress?
Absolutely. And there's so many freaking talented actors out there who are not working because Jason Mraz is playing that part.
Exactly.
That drives me up a fucking wall.
I know.
Like, that's the thing I'd change. Stop it. Stop it. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's a good one.
Irritating.
I like that one better. I still just can't believe that there isn't, with the technology we have now, especially, just a stock, thanks for auditioning, you didn't get the role. Like, it's just amazing to me that, like, you just assume after a couple weeks you didn't get it when you don't hear it. Like, that's crazy.
I guess, every other like business interview would send you like a rejection letter. There's so much rejection in the industry that I don't know if it would make me feel worse to open an email like that.
That's true.
Because like my hopes would get up a little bit seeing like the name of the company or the show, and then I'd be like, oh.
You're like, oh, I had forgotten about this one. If I hadn't have gotten this, I just would have forgotten that I even auditioned.
It's like salt in a wound. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Maybe that's not the best. All right, stunt casting. We're going with stunt casting.
Yeah, let's get rid of that.
All right, we got to pivot.
Okay.
Because this podcast is also about spiritual things. God, spirituality. What did you grow up with? What are you dealing with now? What are you going through? We keep it pretty open-ended and see where we go, but where does the faith start for you?
I grew up going to a Presbyterian church in like vacation Bible school, like camp every summer, where we would sing Jesus songs and do art projects and wear matching t-shirts. And I loved that church as a little girl. We were only there, my mom and I moved when I was 7. So I was only there for the first few years of my life, but they're formative. And I have very fond memories of Christmas pageants, being an angel. And every Sunday, our minister, Arlen, who I adored, would do like story time with the kids up at the front of the church before we'd be released to like our little classrooms. And I remember loving that. I remember standing, with the hymnals and like following along with the notes and, singing the 5 verses of the same melody. And then I had a few years that were like transitional when my mom and I moved to LA that like there was nothing spiritually, nothing at all. I think we said the Lord's Prayer every night before bed. Prayer was very important and very like always
meaningfully or like to check a box?
For me, it was, to check a box mostly. I mean, I was a kid. I was kind of like, okay,
this
is what we do.
Don't want to go to hell? Check the
right.
box.
Well, mom's like, sitting next to me on the bed and we're folding our hands and we're doing this. I don't think I even thought to question it. I think I didn't think to question most things as a child, which is problematic. I highly encourage people to encourage their children to question everything. But, eventually my mom started kind of like seeking like some sort of spiritual like journey again. And I remember some weird experiences, like going to churches with her where like people were speaking in tongues and like gyrating on the floor. And like I was terrified. And she was friends with Vanity. Do you know Vanity, Prince's girlfriend, Vanity? She dated Prince for a while. She was like maybe a singer back in I don't even really know what she was famous for. Modeling, singing. Her name's Denise something or another, like a Kardashian. Yeah. And I remember like she fell in kind of to a group with her, was doing Bible studies. And that was like a little less scary, but still had an element of like weird. Like I didn't trust it fully. It just seemed so intense and so like there was like this glazy look in their eyes, these people. And I don't know. But then I was in 7th grade and a friend invited me to come to her church with her, to her youth group. And she was like a cool girl at school. And so I wanted to like hang out with her. And I was always like on the fringe of being cool. And so I went to Christian Assembly, which was the first time I'd been to a church that felt kind of laid back. And warm. My Presbyterian church was very warm, but it was very formal. And this church was like everybody wore jeans and we sang like different kinds of music. And I remember thinking, oh, this is good. This is cool. I've always had a push and pull with religion. Like on one hand, I thought this is nice. There's something about this that feels good. And, 20-something adults are treating me like a human and care about how I'm doing. And, and on the other hand, my mom's like really doing the hard sell on winter camp. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to go. And I don't want to be the girl who like goes to the altar and like weeps, like, and I had a best friend who was always that girl. She went to every altar call and I felt very uncomfortable and so
I want to be in this, but not in it.
Yeah. Like, what does it mean to really be in it? And why? And I don't think I ever got the why. I think it was all kind of just like, I always believed in God. When I was 5, I asked my parents if I could be baptized, like out of nowhere. So I think I always had a sense of like, there is a God and there's good in that and there's love in that and there's some sort of care for me in that, but it also very much felt like these are the rules. This is what you do. This is how you do it. And I for a long time just like didn't question it, but I also didn't fully buy into it. And so I kind of was just like being obedient, doing the thing.
When they would do the altar call thing, what were you feeling? Was it like cringe, I don't want to go up there, or was it I'm not really buying into this, so I'm not going to go up there, or was it
all of it? It was I'm not buying into it, and it was I don't feel like weeping and like like I don't know if I could go up there and like weep the way that other people are doing. Like I felt a little detached, almost like I was just observing like this strange thing, this phenomenon happening in front of me that felt very, in a way, I felt very isolated by it. And somehow, like, I was not fully a Christian if I wasn't the one, like, weeping and going up, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Like, sometimes when we're doing programs at the church and we're talking about sin, confessing your sins and stuff, and it's to kids, it's kind of like, what have they done that, like, I remember being in junior high and having those same kind of junior high school, having those same kind of altar call, confess and come forward type of situations. And I wonder now if it put too much emphasis on the things that I was considering wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I was making a bigger deal out of them so that I had something to confess and go up and put before God.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. My best friend was already, like, having sex with boys and, like, doing stuff, like ditching school to smoke pot. Yeah. I was so programmed to not do anything. Like, I hadn't kissed anyone. I wouldn't even hold hands. You know, I was so terrified because I was told everything was, like, really bad and was going to, like, really hurt me and I was going to, like, be in trouble and go to hell. Yeah. So, like, I had nothing to confess. I think that's a part of it too. Like, I was like, I'm very conflicted about that kind of stuff now, because there are things that I didn't do for those same reasons, you know, like God's going to punish me type of thing. But then also, it's not necessarily, I didn't get a girl pregnant when I was in high school. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, I have a pretty good moral foundation. Sure. Now because of a lot of that, and some of it I've had to tweak and some of it I've had to reconsider, but also it did keep me out of trouble in times in my life where things can go really bad for you. Do you ever wish that you had had more experiences though? Like, do you ever look at that and go, like, I was so afraid of, like, getting in trouble or being bad, or that, like, I cut myself off from, like, a full experience of adolescence? Because I feel that way every day.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably.
What would be your thing that you wish you could have explored more fully or lived more recklessly?
I don't know, everything. I mean, it's the kind of thing where things are hyped up so much that you can take anything. You can take sex, you can take alcohol, you can take drugs, you can... Like, any of that was hyped up so much in my mind that when I actually tried it, it was like, oh, this is not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? And there's a realization that it's not a big deal, and there's kind of a letdown that it's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, I talk to the junior high and high school pastors here at this church all the time when they get to, like, their sex series they do with, and what a disservice we do to kids, because this was what I was taught. Like, save yourself, because then when you get married,
it'll be so great.
It'll be the fulfillment of everything. It'll be the ultimate fulfillment. It'll be perfect. It'll be, and it's like, it's hyped up so much to something that it doesn't end up being.
It's impossible.
It's impossible
for it to ever live up to that.
It's impossible for it to ever live up to the perfect gift from God.
And you know what? Like, your marriage is still going to have issues, and you're still going to struggle with things, and, like, your marriage isn't going to be, like, foolproof because you both waited either. Yeah. Like, so it's a really misleading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There are things like that. When I had my first sip of alcohol, which I didn't do until I was 22 years old. Like, even on my 21st birthday, I was like, alcohol is bad.
You were a better Christian than I was. I think
if we're couching Christianity in that light, then yes.
16, 15.
No, but then
not getting drunk.
But then I did it, and I was like, oh, that's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like, oh, that's not. Why did I hype that up so much? But again, it did keep me out of a lot of trouble that my other friends were getting in. Some of it,
but don't you think that, like, if your parents had said, like, if you take faith out of it completely, and a parent thoughtfully like discusses these things with a child and the pros and the cons and all the things that can happen and why, that you get the same result.
But could I have had a thoughtful discussion at 16 with my parents? I don't know.
I think that depends on the parents in a way.
Well, I'm also
you're also a
I'm
teenage
also
boy
a
with hormones.
16-year-old boy. Yeah, you know what I mean? And now that I have a 9-year-old daughter, it will be interesting to see what conversations I feel like I can have and what things I just go, this is wrong, don't do it. You know what I mean? Like that'll be it's an interesting test already with a lot of this, because just as I've questioned things in my faith, right, there's nothing more hyperbolic in the faith than worship music and kids stories that we tell the kids, because it has to be dumbed down to some level. You know what I mean? But as I'm telling Cadence Bible stories, or we're talking about God, there are things that are my go-tos that I'm like, oh, I learned this when I was a kid, I should teach her this. No, wait, I don't believe that anymore. So how do I couch this? Like if I'm struggling with what prayer means and how prayer works, and then how we pray every night, but what do I say?
But then why?
That doesn't lead her down that same path that I ended up deconstructing from. What do I actually have to say something in this moment. This is a whole nother level than just me figuring out what I believe.
I'm think about that all the time. Like if John and I decide to have a child, where is that middle ground? Because like you, my faith has taken a lot of turns, and you know, it's not at all what it used to be. And I think that's positive, because what it used to be is a little Stepford wifey. And now it's really questioning, and it's kind of throwing out things, and it's restructuring for myself. Whereas John sort of, doesn't have a faith. He's very much like, we're here and we're all in this together. And, if anything, he sort of has more of like a Buddhist outlook on life. But I think about like what would be important to me, and the things that I'm grateful for with my past is having a sense of something bigger, a sense of something that does love and care for me, that I can talk to when I'm scared or sad, that may or may not understand, right. But like, I think I felt less alone at times in my life because of it. I believe that I've been helped by that higher power at times in my life. And I would want my child to believe in something, because I think it's a lot less lonely and a lot less scary. And just, to have a little tiny sense of something bigger than us, something that's, so all control and all problems don't kind of fall on us. But I don't know. What do you say about prayer?
No, well, I
mean,
most of our prayer at night is just a list of gratitude.
I'm a big believer in voicing gratitude.
I mean, that's basically what we're doing, is voicing gratitude. And we're not like,
you're not genie godding it. I wish for this.
Depositing into the eternal vending machine.
And I will say I still pray and ask for things sometimes, and I don't ask for roles because I don't think that works anymore. Or ever did. But I'll ask for like peace for somebody who's going through something hard. Not a change of an outcome, but like some sort of peace that might defy, explanation or making any sense. But maybe that person will feel a little comfort in the midst of something awful, or, like that kind of asking. But I'm, it's hard. But I would rather believe in something than nothing at all. And I do believe that the universe has, if we don't call it God, if we just talk about this universe that we exist in, all plants, all animals, all trees, all people, that there is something connecting all of us. I like to believe in a little bit of magic because that's fun and that's interesting and intriguing and hopeful, as opposed to just you know,
Yeah.
the nothingness.
Yeah. I want truth. Like I want to know.
But we can't know.
I know, but I would rather know and deal with the implications of the loneliness and the existential dread.
Like, you just want to find out right now, Eric, there is no God.
Yeah. And then
Eric,
deal with the
there is.
consequences.
Right.
Then believe in something that's not true.
Yeah.
And we can't know, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting, and I think we're very fortunate to go to and work at a church that is open to us questioning. And, you know, because I feel like everyone calls it faith, right? And if you were to ask anyone to define it, they would be the belief in the what you cannot see. But what Christians are really saying faith is believing in what they think they can see.
Believing, yeah.
Like having no doubts in what they are seeing is what they're calling faith. I think we have stronger faith because ours is actually attached to some disbelief, some doubt, and we're still like showing up.
Absolutely.
Here. That takes way more faith than showing up to something that you feel like you can concretely
And if
see.
I were God, I would value that relationship so much more.
We're the right ones.
Because how I used to be was just like, it was a duty. It was like expected. It wasn't, there was nothing real. There was nothing substantial there because I was just going through those motions.
Yeah. I
agree with you. I would encourage my child to question everything.
Yeah.
And continually. I don't think we ever stop. I don't think we ever arrive. You know, I think you question throughout your life and it changes and, you know.
Yeah.
I'm questioning everything.
Yeah.
You know, societal structure and, you know, there's so much that I'm asking why and how and what for about right now.
Yeah.
And the only thing I really absolutely know is that we have to have some sense of connection to others and something outside of our immediate world to focus on. So I get that with my friendships and my marriage and my animal job.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And that's all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
If people want to follow your journey, what you got coming up, stuff you're in, how do they follow you?
Please follow me on Instagram so that I can book more commercials.
Just in case you go to a gig and have to show your numbers.
Yeah, it's Juliana A. Sloan.
After this airs, you'll have at least 7 more followers.
Oh my gosh.
Once this gets out to my people, goodness,
I'm
you
so
just
excited.
7 more. Probably my mom, my grandma.
Yes.
Couple aunts.
Oh, thrilled. Thank you for that.
Thank you
Maybe
so much
one or
for
two
doing
people at
this.
church that don't already follow me.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.